Well, hello my friends, and welcome back to the Upper Cumberland Garden. This is Eli Gonzalez, and today I'm going to be talking to you about tomatoes. Yes, tomatoes. Probably the most grown vegetable that there is out there. Most likely you have a tomato plant that you're actually trying to grow tomatoes this year. So if you're having problems, like especially in July, everything starts to get warm, everything starts to get hot, and your plant might not be doing as well as it could be, right? So I'm going to be going over this whole week, 5 short little videos showing you different parts of what you can be doing to keeping your tomato plant healthy and thriving. So if you're having problems with either your plants having some kind of disease, or you're having pest problems, or you're just growing a lot of leaves but hardly any tomatoes, stay tuned and we'll actually go over all those things with you this week. So if you like to know more, stick around. We're back here by the garden. The tomatoes are right behind me. And the first thing I wanted to do was to actually go over with you guys some of the things that we changed differently this year when we prepared the soil and things like that before we planted. So let me show you those. And you gotta love how many tomatoes we're getting. Just a lot of fruit everywhere. All kinds of different kinds of fruits. All kinds of different types of tomatoes. This one's hiding, but if I go on this side, yeah. So, but anyway, they're doing really well, and I'll show them a little more later. But basically, I don't know if you can tell on the video here, but this section right here, it's higher than over here. This is actually lower. And what we did was actually make these two rows that are 3 foot wide. So from here to the other side, there's 3 feet. Then we took dirt from here and put it on top of there to raise that whole area. That whole area is raised about 6 inches, maybe 4 inches in some areas. And then over here we did the same thing. We took dirt from the other side and put it on top and made this whole area a little higher. By doing that, we're avoiding a lot of the problems that we had last year, where we actually the tomatoes did good in the beginning, but then when it actually came to be about this time of the year, a little bit later than this time of the year, they started getting blight. They started getting all kinds of diseases, and it got to be super hard to get rid of any of the weeds that were growing. Now you can tell there's very few little weeds that are growing here. There seems to be one right there, right? And that's all we need to do is like grab it and be done with it, right? There's very little weeding to be done. That allows us to have a lot more time. There we goes another one. Allows us a lot more time to actually put towards pruning the tomatoes instead of having to try to weed eat every weekend, right? Actually, I come out here about once or twice a week and I just go ahead and prune the tomatoes instead of fighting the weeds. So this black cover, and it's just a garden cover, we tried 2 different ones. One was thinner than the other. What I can tell you is that if you decide to do this, you're going to want to get the thicker one, because the thinner one was actually tearing apart very easily. So the thicker one seems to be holding up. We're hoping to be able to actually use these for at least 2 years. So the investment was definitely worth it. I got this right here, what you're seeing, I got a Sam's for, I think it's 4 foot roll, 250 feet for $20. So definitely worth, the effort of putting it in. Just thinking about all the problems that we went through last year of having to take out all the weeds and weed whacking and everything else, this made it super simple. Now, the other part, the reason that we did it raised is because last year we had a big drought in the middle of everything. And I was out here in the middle of the night, because that's the only time I had available, actually, watering the plants. And there's a few bad things that happened with that. Because I didn't, I've been doing it in the middle of the night. I wasn't paying too much attention, so I was getting a lot of the leaves wet. And when the weed leaves get wet, especially at night when they don't get to dry very quickly, they end up getting blight. And between that and the rain and the drought, it was not a good combination. So by raising the bed, it actually took care of the drought part, because we actually mixed in some stuff into the ground so that it had a lot of mulch inside of there and kept some of the moisture a lot better than last year. The second part is that when it did start to rain, it rained like cats and dogs, and the actual fruit, which I don't have any this year, maybe a little bit like this, not quite. but they actually split open, and there was a lot of like white pus that was happening with the tomatoes because they grew too quickly. When there's a drought and then you put too much water in at the one time, the plant just tries to take everything in all at once, and what happens is that it ends up cracking the fruit because the fruit can't grow fast enough. So this year we're not having that problem because we've been keeping it constantly with enough water. And then the last thing that we did, so we raised the bed so we can keep more water in there. We covered it so that the water can go through and actually stays cooler underneath the even though it's black, you would think it would be warmer, but it's actually the soil is actually cooler with that, so it doesn't evaporate all the water as quickly. And finally, by actually putting in these soaking hoses, I didn't have to be out here watering every night. I could actually just turn on the water and let it run for a couple hours every 3 or 4 days, and that's enough water for everything to be growing really well. So those are the things that we did beforehand. And I'm actually gonna, later on in the week, gonna be putting in some transplants, and I'm gonna show you what we do to actually plant the tomatoes. The other part that I wanted to go into was actually how we are trimming and pruning our tomatoes so that there's more tomatoes and less green to worry about. So that's what I'm gonna go into right now. Okay, we're gonna start here with these yellow pear, cherry tomatoes that we got. And it's actually one of the first 4 plants that we planted here, and they actually went through the frost and everything. I thought we were going to lose them because we had a really late frost, late April and then again in May. So, but you can see they're doing really well. Plenty of tomatoes, even at the top. There's still tomatoes coming in. What we did here, we actually covered, and one of the things that I did this for so that we didn't have to have a lot of weeding. Last year down here, this was all covered with grass. You can see actually there's a little bit of here, but there's very little to take care of. It's like literally, there we go, a little bit here, a little bit there. 99% of anything that we had to take care of last year as far as weeds, it's gone now because we have this cover. And that allowed us to just concentrate on the fruit itself and the plant. And what we've been doing, as you can tell, there's a lot of the leaves that we've actually pruned out, and that allowed a lot of that energy for the lower leaves that weren't getting that much sun anyway to actually go into production and getting a lot more tomatoes because of it. As we come across here, you're gonna see how this over here split into 2, and actually tomatoes will do that all the time. The thing is that if you let them split too many times, especially undetermined tomatoes, you'll end up not getting as much fruit because a lot of energy goes into building all this other extra greenery, right? And not into the fruit itself. So what starts as what they call right here in the armpit, these are what they call suckers. They're in between these leaves and the main stem, and they start growing to the side. And you can see I cut them off before and they start growing again. I'm just gonna take these out. These I can actually pinch because it's so little. But if you don't do that, what happens is that they become one big feeding area. So that's what happened down here. I never cut that, and it actually grew another section. So it's almost like having 2 plants here. Now 2 plants probably will do okay, and we're gonna have to try to support it all the way up because these will keep on growing. These are 8 foot tall, and the plants are already up to about 6 foot. So they're gonna keep on growing the rest of the season. They're gonna probably get above 8 foot before I'm gonna have to chop them off because I won't have any support up there. But that's what undetermineds do. They just keep on growing and growing and growing, and you keep on having to prune them every so often if you want more and more tomatoes, because if not, too much energy goes to other things. Like right here, I let this go a little too long. You can see that there's 2 suckers here. This is the main line. This right here, is a leaf, and between the leaf and the main line there is what we call a sucker. Basically, it looks like the real plant, it acts like the real plant, and it will grow, even flower and give you some fruit, but it will take a lot of energy from the rest of the plant, and if you leave those there, then you have problems. So this is the other part that I've been doing. It's actually pruning these, and when they get this big, I actually do get something to cut them with, but basically just come in here, cut them off, that one, and these little ones too right next to it. cut both of those off, and you would think that that would hurt the plant, but it doesn't. It actually helps it. And I'm gonna still leave the leaves that are coming out of there. It's just those particular ones that will grow another plant. I took those out. Now if we go up to the top, I couldn't tell before what was the sucker and what was the main plant, so I let it go. But now you can tell very easily that there is a sucker right here. This is a leaf. And then again, right above it, right in between, they call it the armpit of the plant, between the main stem and those leaves, there's another one growing, and you can tell it looks a little different than the leaf ones. I'm gonna take that out too. Oops. And usually you can pinch them when they're that little, but if it's gonna, I don't want to hurt the plant. The other one looks like it's gonna be a little thicker, so it's easier for me to go ahead and take this and snap it off. All right, and that's all we needed to do with that one. Let me go down as we go down the plant. I usually start at the bottom, but this one I've kept up with. There's a few other ones that are trying to start growing again that I've cut before. You can see them there. So I'm gonna go ahead and take those off. And they're always in the armpits, so, or nearby. You can see another one that I cut over here. They're starting to grow little ones again. So you have to come back and make sure that it doesn't grow another one. But for the most part, you can start at the bottom and work yourself up. Now there's another one here on the second stem. Oops, it's out of focus. The second stem that comes from the bottom, it actually has one right here that was hiding between all these other leaves. So this is the leaf on the bottom where this is at, and this is the little sucker there. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that one off too. Again, I've cut those before, but they're growing again. And as I go across here, there's another little sucker over here. And that's all we're doing, is going around and seeing where the suckers are. And there's one more here that actually has grown quite big. And it almost looks like it has two heads again. You can see this is the sucker over here. And the reason I can tell this is a sucker is because most of the time when you see a leaf and then you see something else growing to the side, usually the real stem will have a flower. And you can see as I go up, there's a flower right here, right on the other side of this. So the one that gets the flower first is the main line. If you get a leaf first or something else and there's no flowers right here, then this is the sucker. That's how you tell them apart when you don't know exactly which one's which. Let me see if I can bring it over. It's from this side. So from this side, you might be able to see it better. So you see how they split right here, and one goes one way, one goes the other. This one looks like, just like the top. If you look at the top of the plant and you look at the real top of the plant, they look very similar. The difference would be is that when from that point that it goes off, this one from the leaf, as you go up, this one got the flower and this one didn't get the flower. So then you know that that's the sucker. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut that one off too. There we go. And that is it. Now, most likely this is a sucker here, so I'm gonna go ahead and just pinch that one off. And there's another sucker here, right before the top of the plant. And I'm gonna take that one off too. And I'll be done. I'll make another video. I actually started doing something that will actually pollinate most of the, because as you can see, there's some that are coming in. Actually, this one looks like it's going to have a little baby thing, cherry thing there. But I found that there's a few that weren't getting any. Well, here's a good example. So you can see that this one does have fruit, right? But then the ones above it, they just turn brown, and the leaf. I mean, sorry, there we go. Oh, trying to get it in focus for you guys. There we go. So the actual flower, it's actually turned brown and just falling off. Can't get it to the focus, guys. Let's see if I can come back a little bit. There we go. Well, you can see this one has a flower that's still going good. Then below it, there's some tomatoes growing. But then right here, you can see this one and this one. It actually, just the flower died. And that one did not get pollinated. And the cool thing about tomatoes, they pollinate very easily because the male and female parts to create the fruit are both in the same flower. And literally most of the time, all you have to do is give them a wiggle, and that's all it needs. You know, normally you're just basically replacing the wind, making the wind wiggle it. And that's all you need to do to actually make sure. But I missed a couple of weeks of doing that, and I'm noticing that there's a few that never got pollinated. So I'm gonna come back and do that to all of my tomatoes now after I finish pruning. So Now, one more thing I wanted to make sure that we went over was how I am actually tying the main trunk of this plant to this ferning strip. And this is what this is. This is an 8-foot ferning strip that you can buy at Home Depots or Lowe's for like $1. And I've actually planted it along with the seedling when I first planted it. And it looked kind of funny because it's 8 foot tall. It's like crazy tall. And then what I did, I put this 5-foot tomato cage, the normal tomato cage on there. And you can see how it doesn't do very much. I actually, if I was just to create support on that, it wouldn't have done much because the leaves really touch it in the right places. You can see a lot of leaves happen in between these metal strips, and it wasn't enough support. But by putting this ferning strip in here, I could actually attach it, and I use this little, elastic little tape that you can find in any gardening shop. And it allows me to actually keep it close, but not really tight against it, because I don't want the fruit to actually be touching, I don't want to be touching like this, because as it grows, it can affect it. But I can keep it close and keep it supported as it goes. And it's already, this is 5 foot here. This is already over, well, almost 7 foot tall. You can see there's only like a foot, maybe a little over a foot left of that 8-footer. And it'll keep on growing past that. So you want to have, for your undetermined, something else to stake them up against. Some people do string method, they do all kinds of different things. I decided that this year I was going to go ahead and use this method and see how it goes, and it's been going really well. You can see my whole line in the back is actually a bunch of stakes, that actually have stakes. And then on the front, I actually use the tomato cages for my determined tomatoes. But then I had a couple of them, like these first 2 ones that I've been showing you, that actually were undetermined. And you can see how there would have been very little that those cages would have done to support if that's all I had. Without those, something else to support it, it would have been really bad. The wind and everything could have probably broken the vine. And this actually has kept them alive and well. Now, this tomato right here is called the Chocolate Sprinkles Cherry Tomato. And I love the color on it. They're like kind of yellow, kind of brown, kind of reddish brown, and like multiple colors on there. And these are already blushing. I'm just looking forward to actually tasting them and see how good they are. So looking forward to that. But this is a good plant that you can see actually from top to bottom how I kept it to be just one trunk line. So we're gonna start at the bottom down here. And you can see every one of these notches is where I've actually taken off a leaf or a sucker. And actually the first 2 feet of the plant up to about right here, I actually have taken all the leaves off. I left this one here. Even this one I can probably take off now. But the reason I'm doing that is because I did not want anything close to the ground where it get a lot of diseases from when it rains and things like that. I just want it to be away from there. So by taking all that out has allowed the plant to be healthy and to be able to have this many tomatoes growing throughout the whole thing. I mean, all the way up to the very top, there's tomatoes growing on here, and it's still growing. So it's still going to be going really strong. What we do anytime that we prune, we want to make sure that we're leaving at least 5 leaves above it. So I could actually literally take a lot of these leaves down here, because as we go up, we can actually see, that there's a lot more leaves that can actually do the photosynthesis for the plant and would be fine. It doesn't need all those leaves. At the same time, this one didn't have that many leaves to begin with compared to some of the other variety of tomatoes that I have here. And you'll see the difference. Some of them have way too many leaves. So this one, being that it didn't have a lot anyway, I let it go for the most part, and leaving, every so often. But when you're doing this, I don't know, if you take a look at the tomato plants, you'll see how the leaves go around like in a Fibonacci pattern, where it's actually, goes around the plant little by little. And you'll see, there's one leaf here, then it goes around, there's another leaf here, then it goes around and goes up here, then the next one goes on the other side, and you can see it's away from me. Then it comes here and it goes closer, and another one right here. This right here, that's not a leaf. Oops, I don't have it on focus. There we go. So this one right here looks like there was going to be a leaf here. As you see the pattern, it was not supposed to be there. You can see a leaf here, and then a few inches and another leaf, and then a few inches another leaf, and then you see something in the middle, but then you see another leaf up here. You know that this is a sucker. So when you see that, you want to take it out and pinch it, okay? And that's it. Now this one has two, actually split off at the top here. And you can see how it has two lines. But remember what I said? If I go up, whichever one has, the first one that has fruit, flowers is the main line, and the other one that doesn't, that doesn't have flowers right away is the sucker. So I'm going to be cutting that off and keeping this one here. So hopefully that, seeing those examples helped you out in figuring, how to prune things. I'll take you to a couple more, and then I'll let you go at it for yourself, okay? Okay, now determined tomatoes, they don't grow to be as tall as undetermined tomatoes. They're actually set to grow to a certain height, give so much fruit, and be done. And most people don't trim or prune their determined tomatoes. However, I found that to be helpful in certain types, like this particular plant. It actually was just so covered I couldn't even see the fruit, and the fruit was so compact in there that it wasn't hardly any space for it to actually grow. So what I ended up doing was actually trimming a lot of the leaves that were at the bottom. I mentioned before, you just need a few leaves on the top to actually have enough photosynthesis for the whole plant. So I took out a lot of the lower leaves and actually allowed it to breathe better. It's helped me because I don't know if you can see here, but this is one of the leaves. You can see how this is getting yellow and discolored. I don't want that to become something bad for the whole plant. So that's what I've been taking out, was everything that was in between, just because it doesn't get enough wind flow or anything like that. It actually is prone to disease. So I'm taking those. Okay, and just like that, I'm going to take that out and leave the rest of the plant. It's doing just amazing. So I just don't want those bad leaves to be left in with the good ones, just in case there's any disease that comes with it. Well, there you have it. 101 ways to keep your tomato plants healthy, right? Everywhere from how you planted them, how, to make sure that you take a lot of those leaves at the bottom off so they're not prone to getting sick with blight and things like that. At the same time, being able to prune them so that there's more energy going into your fruit than there is to just growing a lot of greenery. And finally, how to actually just jiggle the flowers a little bit so that you can actually get them pollinated and get more of the fruit out. Hopefully that those things helped you out. The next time around, I'm going to show you what I'm going to be doing for pests and what I'm using actually to keep them healthy by feeding them with a spray. So I got this happy tomato juice I'm going to share with you guys on the next video. So thanks for stopping by. Like it if you like this video. If you find anything that's important that you think that your friends would like to know about it, go ahead and share it. And I'm looking forward to the next time we meet. Take care and keep gardening.